Hey, what's up, everybody? It's BDF44 coming at you with another video. Okay, Game 5 of the NBA Finals was just complete. The Milwaukee Bucks did win the game in Phoenix in spectacular fashion. So, I just got through watching the box score. Of course, I watched as much of the game as I could. Same old story with me. Couldn't find the links, but I did watch a little more of this game than I did some of the others, and tried to pay as much attention to it as humanly possible. So, the box score told me that the game was pretty even, but the offensive rebounds were a story there. The 11-8, Milwaukee was able to win that. Phoenix shot the ball better from the line. Phoenix shot the ball better from three. They shot pretty much the same from the field goal percentage. And to be honest with you, they turned the ball over less than the Milwaukee Bucks. So all things considered, if you look at the box score, it's kind of hard to figure out how the hell the Phoenix Suns lost the game, to be honest with you. It doesn't really tell the story, but I'll tell you what I saw. In the first quarter, the Phoenix Suns got off to a very hot start. It seemed like things were falling for them. Things were going great. All of a sudden, the second quarter hit. They were up by 15, and then the Milwaukee Bucks started hitting shots. Bam, 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 3-point shots. You could clearly see, and I said this in the second quarter, the way that Milwaukee erased their 15-point deficit, and then the way that the Suns initially responded to that erasing of the deficit, spoke to how deadly both of these teams are. They both displayed how deadly they were in their own way, but the thing about it was Milwaukee was able to get stops where Phoenix was not. They were able to win the 50-50 matchups. They were able to get the key steals. They were able to find themselves in position to just do the little things just a little better than Phoenix tonight. It was a really even game, but it had its ebbs and flows. Moments where you thought it was going one way or the other. You really didn't have a definitive understanding of what was happening all the way until the end, really, because there was no point in the game where the score was actually telling the story. It's basically what I'm telling you. So let's get into who played very well. First of all, you have to mention Jrue Holiday, because he was the guy who ultimately sealed the deal. He was the guy that shot them back into the game in the second quarter, and he was the guy that got the key steal at the end. And he was just all over the place offensively and defensively. It was one of the better games you'll ever see out of him. You could clearly see he's in better shape than Chris Paul. I think that was what stood out for me. Chris Paul was doing what he could, but he was going up against a stronger body than his, a more in-shape body than his, and it really showed tonight. It actually showed. Middleton was awesome tonight for the Milwaukee Bucks, and I'll get back to that. Giannis had a fantastic game down the stretch here and there. We'll get into that. There's a whole conversation to be had about Middleton and Giannis for me, so I want to get into that. But to move on to who else played well, of course, I want to point out Devin Booker, who came out of there with 40-plus once again. As I told you guys, I'm more inclined to believe that any given night, Devin Booker's going to score over 30 than less than 15. He's that kind of scorer. He's been that kind of scorer since pretty much his rookie season. And whether the team is good, whether the team is bad, whether the defense is good, whether the defense leaves him alone, it really doesn't matter. He's a guy, like so many other phenomenal scorers this game has seen, is someone who can just score no matter what. And you're seeing his talent on display. Truly, his greatness on display. This kid can score anytime he wants against any defense ever. And that's what I've learned. He's being guarded by some of the best defenders in basketball right now. Jrue Holiday's one of the best defenders in basketball, and he's taking on the challenge of trying to guard Devin Booker, and Devin Booker's torching him. He's torching him every time. So, I can tell you from this point, we've already known who Devin Booker was, but going forward, I think his legacy is going to be even more solidified from what we're seeing in these finals, whether they win the series or not. What we're seeing here is the beginning of something. This is a 24-year-old guy who's just getting started. Even though we've seen him for many years already, he's just literally getting started. So, yeah, people are comparing him to Kobe Bryant. I think that's a little premature. But what I can say is I can't seem to see any type of defense that stops this dude. That's what he's showing me tonight. However, with that being said, he hurt his team at the end. The one free throw that they missed, he missed down the stretch. The turnover that Jrue Holiday had when he was in the paint. It was a situation where Booker was in the paint. He had gotten caught up. They were double teaming him, and he didn't see that weak side defender coming from the backside on the triple team. Jrue Holiday came around, snatched that ball right out of his hands, darted it down to Giannis for a nice finish lob that you will always see from here on out. That's going to be one of the great lobs in finals history. It sealed the game. And, it's one of those situations. There was a play before that where Devin Booker kind of forced a shot where I thought he had James Johnson at the top of the key. I believe that was James Johnson. Cameron Johnson at the top of the key, I believe it was. And he did not get him the ball. Instead, he tried to force something. It didn't work. When you're playing as well as Devin Booker is, and you look over at some of your teammates and they don't really have it. Some of the guys didn't really have it tonight. Chris Paul kind of didn't show up like I was thinking he would. You're hot, so you're going to keep shooting. You're hot down the stretch of the game, so you're going to take it upon yourself to keep doing what's working. But the problem is the defense intensified. The urgency on the defensive end became more intense as the game became closer to its close. And the stuff that was working in the first three quarters and even in the first half of the fourth quarter was not working in the final minutes of that game. And we could see how they had tightened up on Devin Booker, and because he wasn't letting the ball kind of flow from within his hands, because he was only holding on to it and kind of ball hogging a little bit, it really did hurt his team down the stretch. His inexperience definitely reared its ugly head this evening. So despite him having a phenomenal game where I think he came out of there with like 40 or something like that, 42, it just really came down to not enough ball movement down the stretch on his part. You gotta let it go. You gotta get the ball popping. I need to see more Miles Bridges. Mikal Bridges. He had it going on tonight. Didn't see enough of him. He was kind of just roaming, but would find a way to hit a big three, hit a big shot here, find a way to get to the lane here. He was doing a lot of the right stuff, but he just wasn't featured enough for my liking tonight. Same goes for Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges did exactly what I thought they would do. They bounced back and played well at home. But it just wasn't enough from them being featured as hot hands. I thought Monty Williams was trying to, kind of feature the stars a little more. As I said in the previous video, this is a stars series, so you expected the stars to really shine. But I just felt like there were opportunities to kind of get those two players the ball a little more since they were able to hit the three tonight. So I just felt like they left some opportunities on the board without featuring those guys a little more. So let's get into what I saw from Giannis. The reality of the situation is this, and it's been the reality of the entire series, and I know it's not popular because he just had the fantastic lob, and he was very much a contributor to what went right. But let me tell you what I saw out there. In the first quarter, the Milwaukee Bucks went down by as much as 15 points because Giannis was doing the stuff that I hate seeing him do. That's what happened. He was at the top of the key, launching bad three-point shots as the defense sagged off of him. Those shots were not falling. Trying to do the stuff that he does where he's ISO Giannis, and he doesn't have that type of ability. When you do that, you put him in positions to do that, you're going to fail. Period. Middleton got off to a slow start. It was bad basketball in the first quarter of the Milwaukee Bucks, and the reason why is because they were featuring and running everything through Giannis. It doesn't work. The last 2 years in the playoffs, they ran everything through Giannis, and they fell flat. The reason why they're having success in these playoffs is because they've gotten away from Giannis, and they've told Giannis to essentially get in where he fit in, and they are featuring Middleton. As soon as Giannis sat down, there was two things that happened in that at the beginning of the second quarter. Giannis sat down, and Booker sat down. Those two things were why the Milwaukee Bucks were able to get back in the game. That's exactly why they got back in the game. Because at the same time, Giannis sat down, Booker sat down. So what you have there is the problem removed from the Milwaukee offense, And that dude that's down there torching them is also removed from the defensive side of the ball. The guy that they have to focus on most on defense is also removed. So what that did was allow Milwaukee to settle down, focus more on the offensive end, have that free-flowing offense that they get from Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton when Giannis ain't on the floor, and it got them back in the game. Drew Holiday hit like a couple threes, Middleton hit some big shots, and they were right back in this thing so quick. And it was that simple. Why? Because them lost possessions that come from Giannis trying to do too much were not there. They featured those two guys, and they found they looked like the best team in basketball. Simple as that. That's what happened. They got back in the game. They were able to draw it close. Giannis came back in. Everything came back to normal. He got in where he fit in, did all the things that he does, getting easy baskets, rebounding, tip balls, doing the stuff, block shots, all the highlights and all that. That gives him the accolades and the opportunity to look like the MVP, great player that he actually is. But the reality is, he's not the best player on this team, and we know that. Bottom line, the best player on this team is Chris Middleton to the core. And what we saw down the stretch of this basketball game was Chris Middleton taking over. When it was a big shot to be had, he was taking it. When it was time to string together some shots and offset Devin Booker's great play on the offensive end, it was Chris Middleton that they were giving the ball to and getting shots out of. So, of course, as I've always said, that's the recipe for success for the Milwaukee Bucks, and they're gonna have to keep going too. Okay, Chris Paul, we got to talk about it. He had 21 points, I think 7 assists. But to be honest with you, I was expecting a lot more out of Chris. He needed to play better. He just didn't have it like he needed to in these last 2 games. And I'm afraid this championship opportunity is slipping away from him, and I don't think he's ever going to get another one. And that's depressing. It's just literally depressing when you consider what he's capable of doing and how he's played these last 2 games. When you have an opportunity, you're up 2-1 on a team, or 2-0 rather, on a team. 2-1, yeah, on the team and going into game 4. You wet the bed, you come back home, and you don't really play that much better. He hit a big 3 down the stretch of the game. He had some big shots here and there. But to be completely honest with you, the defense is doing a fantastic job on him. As I said, even though Drew Holiday isn't having the greatest success against Devin Booker, despite putting the best defense you can put on him. I mean, he's doing a great job on him. It's just Devin Booker's just, great offense beats great defense in this situation. But as it pertains to him guarding Chris Paul, he's having success against Chris Paul. He's locking Chris Paul up pretty good. And the reason why is I think it's just Chris Paul's age catching up to him, man. He's, like I said, he's not in the type of shape that he needs to be in to go up against a guy like Drew Holiday who's in his prime. You know what I mean? Who naturally is probably a little more strong than him. Naturally might be slightly more athletic than him. It's just, it's a bad matchup. As great as a player as Chris Paul is, it's a real bad matchup going up against a guy who's gifted on the defensive end, who can also drop 30 on your head, who can also get 13, 12 assists. I mean, he can do everything Chris Paul can do. That's what we're seeing there. Drew Holiday is pretty much mirroring Chris Paul in some ways. And in the ways that you need him not to, unfortunately. In terms of Chris Paul having to deal with something. Like, you don't want to have to deal with yourself if you're Chris Paul. It's a younger version of you. That's exactly what he's running into, basically. And it's scary, man. You consider the fact that this series is headed back to Milwaukee. And now the entire, not only has the momentum shifted, but the series itself has shifted. Now the Phoenix Suns have their back against the wall, down 2-3. And I'm telling you, from where I'm sitting, I don't see them winning this game. I think Milwaukee's going to win the championship on Tuesday. And the reason why I think that is because you didn't win the game you needed to win at home. The series hadn't started. They always say the great statement is this: the series doesn't start until a team loses at home. Well, a team lost at home, and it happened to be the Phoenix Suns. So now that the series is headed back to Milwaukee, have I seen series where teams lose at home and then come back and win the game 6? Of course, you see it a lot. It's happened a lot. So can Milwaukee lose? Is it possible Milwaukee loses this game? Of course it is. But Deer District is going nuts. They ain't won a championship in 51 years or something like that. Giannis is so hungry. He's been in Milwaukee for 10 years developing for this moment. Chris Middleton's been waiting for this moment his whole career, ever since he was drafted to the Detroit Pistons and traded to the Milwaukee Bucks in a trade that, if I'm not mistaken, him and Tobias Harris were a part of. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know how the hell you give up on those two players that early, but whatever. He's been in Milwaukee all this time, kind of as a guy who's built his way up the ranks, made some all-star teams, didn't get the credit he deserved. He's a guy who's finally making a name for himself, and a guy, of course, like Jrue Holiday, who's finally getting an opportunity to show that he's one of the great defenders in this league, finally getting a chance to show that he's one of the great players in basketball. He's always gone under the radar, kind of flying in the Mike Conley lane, so to speak. But he needs to get him a championship. He needs to solidify himself as somebody who's not just somebody who's going under the radar, but somebody you know about, you spoke about, and someone who's going to make the Hall of Fame. I think if he can win this Game 6 in the same fashion that he won Game 5, I think that's a good possibility that he'll earn his way in there. Because I can tell you right now, with all due respect to the Hall of Fame, there's some guys in the Hall of Fame right now not better than Jrue Holiday. I'm just going to be real with you. There's some guys in there that ain't better than him, period. So it is what it is. Now, other guys I want to mention as well. Two guys that are continuing to display heart, grit, determination, and just leadership from a role-playing perspective, from a veteran's perspective. You got to give credit to PJ Tucker and Jay Crowder. Them two dudes, they're what the NBA's made of. They're the best of the NBA, if you ask me. Guys who are not necessarily superstars to get all the credit, but you know who they are. The superstars respect them. The superstars want them on their teams, and they're in the finals. And I think a good reason why their teams are in the finals is because of their presence. So you got to give credit to those two guys. You speak of guys who are in the same lane. Those guys are definitely in the same lane. And it's a respectable lane to be in. It's called playoff performer, defensive threat, and three-point threat. That's what those guys are. And you got to respect them. They're both doing what they need to do to make sure their teams are competitive each and every night. They're at a disadvantage because they're not the most skilled individuals, but they go hard. They go hard every night, and you're seeing what it is that they bring to the table. Both of them balling. So I want to see more. Look, this is what's going on with Phoenix. There's two things going on out of Phoenix that I need to see more out of. I need to see some things change. First of all, there's a big, huge hole in their defense, y'all. And the big, huge hole is the same hole it's been since the beginning of the series, since all year long. They don't have a power forward that they can really rely upon. And I mentioned Jay Crowder, but I look at him as a 3, y'all. And he's doing the best he can. But the problem that they're having is when they rotate on defensive situations, they're always at a disadvantage because that last rotation player is not going to be able to put a body on the bigger guy who's going to not likely get the ball in the paint. It's just it's the way it's going. They're playing 4-on-5 out there. That's what I'm seeing. The Phoenix Suns got to give themselves a hand, got to give them an effort, give them a gold star for finding a way to stay close despite having such a seriously big disadvantage on the defensive end with their rotation situation without Dario Saric and without a legitimate power forward with some size down there. They just continue to get beat on 50-50 balls. They continue to get out-rebound on the offensive end, particularly. They're not getting any second chance points. It's just why they lost tonight, in my opinion, is because they just didn't have a big enough body in their rotation situations. And there was a lot of easy buckets made by the Milwaukee Bucks making the extra pass. That's what I saw a lot of. And I don't know how you fix that. I don't know that they have the roster personnel to fix it. The good thing is the problem they've had the whole series. So they've still managed to win 2 games in this series despite having this issue. But it's a huge issue, and I saw Milwaukee take advantage of it tonight. When you're in the playoffs, the team has a chance to see you a million times. That means that the stuff that they start getting good at that's working, they can continue to go to. They may have found something. And I think that's exactly what we found here. So even though we didn't see that at the beginning of the series, them taking advantage of it, don't expect them not to take advantage of it in Game 6 because it's laid out flat. The Phoenix Suns just do not have the personnel to guard the Milwaukee Bucks properly. They got players that are filled with heart, defensive players that are not afraid to be physical, but they're undersized where they need not be, and that's a big problem. And that's why I think this series is over.
I really do think the series is going to end in 6 because of that problem is not going to go away. Budenholzer sees it's wide open, and now that they've had a chance to play his team 5 times, it's pretty much a situation where I think they've mastered that. They understand what they need to do, and now it's just about doing it. So that's bad. That's really bad. But the other thing I wanted to say is I need to see more out of Cam Payne, man. I need to see more out of Cam Payne. This is a game tonight where Cam Payne's supposed to go off. And then not to say that he didn't play, well, or put his foot down. He got hit in the mouth real good. He was trying to make his presence felt. But I look at Monty Williams, I say, this is a kid who you relied upon greatly in the previous series when Chris Paul wasn't out there. This is a boy that put up 30-something points, had no turnovers. He played like an all-star in parts of that series against the Clippers. He was good against the Lakers. He was good against Denver. I know he had a little bit of an ankle injury, I think, in that series previously. He just isn't being featured enough. He's already solidified himself as a big-time player in my eyes, somebody who can be a big-time playoff performer. I want to see him get 30 points in Game 6. I'm serious. I know that's kind of hard because it's only one ball going around. You got Devin Booker going for 40 every night. You got Chris Paul trying to get it. You got all this going on. But their team is at their best when he is pushing the pace. They did a great job against the Clippers without Chris Paul because Cam Payne was that fast and that effective, penetrating, shooting the ball with the ball in his hands. All that stuff I say I don't like Giannis doing is the same stuff that I saw Cam Payne be very, very good at. Give him the ball at the top of the key in a half-court set. He'll break down his defender, maybe hit a 3 in his face, make the right pass, break him down, get to the lane, get to the line, hit his free throws. I see that type of potential in him in the half court, and of course, as I said, in the full court setting, when you have a fast break situation, he's the point guard that I like best running out there with guys like Cam Johnson and Devin Booker, etc., because he pushes the pace much more than Chris Paul. He pushes it, and that's what I need to see more of. I'll tell you, man, I love Monty Williams. I respect him. I think he's a good coach, but he has been outcoached in the series. There have been some things that he just needed to do a little better, pushing buttons here and there. I don't think he's gone deep enough into his bench. I understand that they have somewhat of a shallow team, and the tradition is to shrink your bench in the playoffs, but I don't believe that you can play guys 40 minutes and get single-digit numbers out of them scoring the ball. I'm not going to say that you go and play Frank Kaminsky or that you go down to the bottom of your bench and all that. But I think what you're having here is some guys just running out of gas on both sides, particularly DeAndre Ayton. He's not the same player he was at the beginning of the series. He was looking gassed out there to me, as most players did, to be honest. But you just need to find something else down there. You have to find something that works that you're not using right now. And look, here's another thing that has to be mentioned in regards to the Milwaukee Bucks. They're getting rebounding out of their guard positions. Pat Connaughton is balling, man. He is a big, huge problem in the Phoenix Suns side. He is one of the reasons why I'm saying that you got to go deeper into your bench, because here he's getting in the game and giving them like almost a double-double as like their 6th or 7th guy. I mean, it's like, come on now. If Pat Connaughton's playing this well, Phoenix, on your floor, you're not gonna win. It's that simple. He's had 2 games in a row where he's pretty much dominated on the boards. This can't happen. He's hitting his threes too. I mean, come on, man. You know what I mean? You got to give him credit. He's balling, but the Phoenix Suns have to do a better job of guarding this guy and making sure that he's not looking as effective as he is. What are we talking about? You know what I mean? So it's just some stuff out there that are coaching issues, to be honest with you. Stopping the bleeding, settling guys down, letting a guy like Devin Booker understand that we appreciate his scoring, but we also need his balance as it pertains to ball movement and making sure your teammates get involved, particularly down the stretch. The same stuff that worked in the first 3 quarters scoring the ball, it's not going to work down the stretch when they tighten up on you, man. They take more chances because they can with less clock left. You have to understand that you're going to be collapsed upon. And them little jumpers and mid-range jumper, all that stuff you're pulling off, nah, not down the stretch. You learned a hard lesson tonight, Devin Booker. Not down the stretch. You better let that ball go. When you feel them bodies on you, you're getting double teamed, and that guy's coming up from behind you, you can't even see him. He's already on you. Guy that skilled, Drew Holiday, he snatched that ball away from you and it's gone. And that was that. Now, here's something else I want to talk about, the referees. So tonight, I felt like the vibes of the game was early on, touch fouls. Call touch fouls on Phoenix. Every single play, it looked like Giannis or anybody wearing white was being touched. It was a foul. So early on, you see that it was already frustration starting to pile up for the Phoenix Suns. Down the stretch, they swallowed their whistles. So they weren't calling much anything. It was a lot. It was like they switched up midway through the game. So I don't know, man. I'd be lying if I said I didn't sense referee manipulation in this game, just like I did in the last one. I sensed it in both games. I've sensed it all series. I'll leave it at that. It's just, hey, I could be wrong, but I just would much rather not ever have to talk about the officiating of any game. So there's that. And, last but not least, we got to talk about Budenholzer and the fantastic job he's doing. 1 game away from an NBA championship. I doubted him. I clowned him. I said he was unorthodox. I said he didn't know what he was doing and all that dumb stuff. And then I started watching him in these playoffs a little more. And now I have a great deal of respect for his unorthodox style and his adjustments and the buttons that he presses. He has been the best coach in this series. And I think he's going to win a championship on Tuesday. I think this series is over, man. I really do. You just cannot drop 2 games on the road, come home, drop that game, and then think you're going to win 2 straight against a team that you have mismatch issues against. It's just not happening. It's just literally not happening. Stranger things have happened in this series. I'm not going to lie. A game still has to be played. All things can be laid out flat on a table for you. And you could still see guys do something special. You might see like I said, a 33-point game out of Brook Lopez is possible. A 25-point game out of Brent Forbes. Maybe you mess around and see another big game out of Jay Crowder where he gets 6 or 7 threes. I mean, anything can happen. But what I'm saying to you is when you start to figure out what a team does and doesn't do correctly, and you start to have success against that, and you start realizing that they can't stop it, now it's just about you continuing to do it. And that's where we're at in this series. Milwaukee just has to continue doing what works. Don't feature Giannis. Feature Middleton. It works. Drew Holiday, continue to do what you're doing. Pat Connaughton, continue to focus on getting the boards from your position that is so very valuable. And Middleton, continue to play as well as you've been playing because you're torching their defense and they can't stop you. There's nothing left to say, honestly. I think we're at a space where I'm ready to congratulate the Milwaukee Bucks on their first championship in 50 years. That's how bad this game looks from a momentum standpoint. Milwaukee had the momentum going into this game. They didn't shoot better. They turned the ball over more. They barely rebounded better, and they still won the game. They shot worse in the last game and still won the game. So Phoenix is having issues defensively. Those issues are massive, and this series is over. My name is BDF44. Thank you all for watching. I'm out.